Now, I'm sure the news which is weighing on most of your minds is the U.S. has had its bonds downgraded from a AAA rated investment to a AA plus, and it's thrown the stock market into turmoil. I remember yesterday, me and my mom were looking into a classical Christian community. It's like a homeschool co-op. I'm a homeschooler. See if we were gonna take part in that. And my mom went out to the hallway to take the call. I went out there a couple minutes later to see what was taking her so long, and she mouthed to me that the stock market had lost 537 points. And this is due to the credit downgrade. And today it lost hundreds of points in the morning, and so it's just been really bad for the stock market. And gold has broken. It's over 1750, I think. So it's just been bad for stocks and good for the gold. And today Ben Bernanke said he was going to keep interest rates super low to help try to stimulate the economy. But some people I respect a lot have called the S&P downgrade it wasn't a good call on their part. Warren Buffett, great capitalist, someone I respect a lot, said we should be quadruple A plus rated for our bonds. That's how reliable they are. And Ron Paul, libertarian, congressman, now presidential candidate, someone else I'm a big fan of, he's also said it wasn't good what they did. It wasn't the right thing for them to do. And there may be a kernel or even a whole popcorn piece of truth to these S&P naysayers' claims, because when I went onto the list of AAA rated countries, their bonds, on that list I saw Germany, the United Kingdom, and France. And what struck me is because if you look at the GDPs of these countries, they all tend to be from 2 trillion to 2.5 trillion. And France and Germany's debt, external debt, which is debt held by foreigners, is around 4 to 4.5 trillion. And England's external debt is way, way worse. It's 8 trillion. So they have a much higher debt to GDP ratio than us. We recently just passed the 100% external debt to GDP ratio. They have a much higher. And so therefore they're in a much worse fiscal situation. But their bonds are still rated AAA. So to me that struck me as kind of odd, because a large part of the S&P's downgrade seemed to be, they said that we'd have to shave $4 trillion off of our debt to regain our rating. And it sounded like a good deal of this downgrade had to do with our unsustainable spending path. So for these welfare state, overburdened, high tax, high spending European Union countries to have their bonds be considered AAA, while ours have just been downgraded, it seems kind of counterintuitive. And Glenn Beck pointed out in his show how S&P hasn't exactly been, these credit agents haven't exactly been the golden standard in predicting the solvency of before now corporations. And for example, Enron, it took a long time for these credit agencies to catch on. Some of them didn't even catch on until Enron was literally going bankrupt. And that's a little late to be saying, oh, maybe you shouldn't be investing anymore. And I mean, also they didn't evaluate these banks that went boom in the housing boom and bust. They didn't really evaluate the credit risk of those very well either. So the S&P doesn't seem like that reliable a source. And I'm not just saying this because I think Ron Paul should be president and I agree with him. I mean, if you look at the evidence, it seems to suggest the S&P might have a different motivation, or perhaps maybe they're trying to be conservative, because before they were so wrong on so many of these other big things. I mean, a huge amount of billions and billions, hundreds of billions of dollars disappeared in the Enron scandal, and in the housing boom and bust. It was what triggered the Great Recession. So maybe they just were like, we're going to be conservative this time, because in the past we haven't been that good at predicting. Anyway, it just seems like it doesn't work. And the way I think that we should regain our path to fiscal sanity, with or without the S&P, is to first become interest independent. Find money in our budget so that we can pay the interest on our bonds without having to borrow more to pay for it. Because I think something that would kind of shake me if I was a lender, if I was a bank and I saw a customer come in and say, I don't really have the money. Well, actually I do, but I'm just spending it on all this other stuff. So I can't pay you the interest that is due, but I'll borrow some more money to pay the interest. It just doesn't seem like I, as the banker, would consider that a good fiscal policy, because it would seem to signify that perhaps I might not get much of this money I'm investing back. And that's another issue that's during this whole debt debate, the debt ceiling debate, the thing that was mostly demagogued was that we default on our interest payments. But beyond our interest payments, remember the more important thing, the interest payments they add on to this, and they make us have to increase our debt load to pay for it. But we got to remember that the $14 trillion, a large portion of that are these bonds, not just the interest. So we've got to look at it as not only the interest, because that's the only thing that everyone seems to be focusing on right now, but also the bonds are what have to be paid. So it's just this whole crazy system where we're accumulating debt to pay the interest, and we're not even considering right now. The public is not considering the bonds. They're just considering how not being able to pay the interest is. When it comes due that we have to pay a good deal of our bonds, do you think we're going to be able to? Beyond creating more and more debt, which may not be an option for too much longer if the S&P continues with this rating. Anyway, it's just a big mess, and I hope the only way we can fix it is to reduce the scope of the federal government and use the revenue to pay back the deficit, in my opinion. In the marketplace of ideas, our stocks rose, their bonds broke. The free market always rocks. Government intervention knocks into price system barriers, making the situation hairier. And that's why Ron Paul should be president. That's all, folks.